Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today's build will be the Void Knight Decimator, which will be a replica of the Paladin Decimator build that we did a couple of days ago. However, we'll be running it as Void Knight. We'll respec some of the trees a little bit differently. We're going to go for a lot more Devouring Orbs, and we're going to show off the DPS of this build compared to the Paladin version of it, because with the Echoes and the extra cooldown that you get from Anomaly, the ability to get a lot more Devouring Orbs out there, the ability to attack faster, we'll be using Smite for that 50% cast and attack speed, is going to allow you to do 2 to 3 times as much DPS on this build as you were on the Paladin build. You'll have about the same amount of tankiness, you'll have a lot more leech. We'll be using Anomaly to do a lot more leeching. However, since we won't have the Sigils of Hope, you're going to have a little less armor, but you're going to have a lot more DPS for it. You're going to kill a lot of things before they even get to you, and you can still face tank a lot of the bosses. You got to dodge some attacks. You can't stand in Lagon's beam, but you are still decently tanky. You'll have your 100% critical strike avoidance, your capped out resist, some armor, but you're just going to be a huge pile of purple stuff going everywhere with your huge amount of spell crit and high amount of physical damage with your Rive skill. So let's go ahead and cover this build with the skills and the interactions. For skills, I'm running Abyssal Echoes, Rive with +2 levels, Smite, Anomaly, and Devouring Orb with also +2 levels. For Abyssal Echoes, we are not using Soulfire this time. We will not be converting it to fire. It's going to stay void. It's still going to get the ignite chance from the scepter. We still took the 4 points in Fiery Abyss so that it will have the 100% ignite chance of its own. And then again, we'll be doing a bunch of the recast and a bunch of the mana efficiency with the delay. So every 2 seconds it'll cast until it gets all 6 of them off. And then we have some increased area for it. For Rive, this once again will be converted to having all of the ignite on an enemy into physical damage so that you can stack a lot of physical damage. The more enemies and the more ignite, the more physical damage you'll get and the harder you'll swing. Other than that, it's set up the exact same way. You're still going to want the Overwhelm to get rid of the last rate, but get the 50% more damage with the third strike, the 3 points in Brutality for 60% more damage with the third strike, 3 points in Savagery for 45% more hit damage versus ignited enemies, and of course make sure you get the third strike always crits. If you plan on using different weapons for this, which you can do, you'll get less ignite, but you can run different weapons and get your 100% chance of ignite without this. You can stay out of here and do a lot more void damage. I thought about doing it, but it caused a lot of respecking and changing, and then the physical damage boost just isn't as much when you go the void damage, so we stuck with it the same way for now. And then the execution is going to be what gives you all that physical damage per ignite stack consumed on that third strike, and then of course a little bit of leech never hurts. For Smite, which we threw in, Smite is going to give you 50% attack and cast speed, which is huge. It's going to create less stutter with the Devouring Orbs, and it's going to let you attack faster with Rive. And then I put 1 point in Descent so that you could teleport. This gives it a cooldown, but it lets you just keep it on auto cast so that you'll have about 66% time of uptime on the attack speed and cast speed, but at least it'll let you move forward. Since we're not running lunge, I wanted to have at least one movement skill, so we went ahead and did that for Smite. We then again went on the right side so that it won't convert it to lightning. It'll still be a void skill thanks to the passive tree inside of Void Knight, but you'll be able to hit a bunch of extra targets with lightning bolts. And then we have 3 points in Holy Fire for some ignite chance with it. For Anomaly is set up so that we have the time bubble, 100% uptime of the time bubble, cooldown for our other skills like Devouring Orbs, and then a lot of leech. So get the time bubble, make sure you get into the duration, make sure that the effects of it persist for 2 seconds after the time bubble disappears. Once you get the cooldown, this will knock it down to where you can have 100% uptime. This will also give you attack and cast speed, and then a whole bunch of leech up on the top. And then for Devouring Orb, we set this one up a little bit differently than Paladin. On the Paladin, we didn't take Cataclysm and the Orb Master. We did do that here. So instead of a 4-second duration on the Devouring Orb, we're down to a 1.6 second, which when you also use Anomaly, it reduces it even a little bit further. And the reason I stayed away from that on the Paladin is, one, it just creates more stutter stepping because you have to stop to cast it since you can't make it an instant cast. But on the Void Knight, it's tougher to do that because you get echoes, and so the more times you cast it, the more likely you are to get the echo, and you just get so many more of them. It's inefficient not to do it this way. However, I can understand some people's version of not liking it on the character for that stutter stepping and making it feel like you're always having to stop and be jolty. However, in here, we do have 1 point in Cataclysm, 5 points in the Orb Master. We again want to take the Abyssal Orbs, because that's what's going to be doing the Void hits, putting all the Ignite on the enemies. And then we worked our way down for some move speed, and you want to get the mana efficiency with the cast speed. For Sightless Start, this will make it a little less stutter steppy, because that cast speed will make the stutter feel less, or quicker, if you will. And the mana efficiency helps so you don't have to Rive as much, because this will be a mana intensive build, and if you're not Riving, your mana will go down. For passives, I have 31 points in the Sentinel base class, with 3 points in Overwhelm, 4 points in Counterattack, 8 points in Juggernaut, 5 points in Armor Clad, 5 points in Time and Faith. You're going to definitely need this for the mana gained on Rive use to keep up with all the mana intensive things that you'll be using. 1 point in Gladiator to dual wield, kind of a requirement to hold 2 weapons, and then 5 points in Blade Master for some extra attack and cast speed, which also will help with the Devouring Orb stutter. And then we have 80 points in the Mastered Void Knight. The major takeaways in this is make sure you max out your echo chance up top. The move speed's really nice. You will be doing melee void damage, so getting some extra of that's going to be extremely helpful. And the Woe will give you the increased melee damage for both the physical and the void. And then of course you're doing spells and you're doing melee, so I went ahead and put 8 points in void bolts and 8 points in void blades. And then of course max out that leech, because you're going to want it, as when you take a hit you're going to want to be able to get all of that void and melee damage you're doing as Leech's Life. This will increase your survivability tremendously because it stacks really well with Anomaly. For items and idols, we're wearing the same idols. It'll still be the % increased Rive critical strike multiplier and the % chance to ignite while at high health. We'll still have 2 uniques. We'll be wearing Gasper's Will and Blade of the Forgotten Knight, the exact same 2 as the Paladin build. And then for crafted items, remember these will be in the gear planner, which in the description is a link to the written form where the gear planner link will be. But I will hover over all of them for a second here so that you can see them, and pause the video if you don't want to go to the gear planner. The only thing new is that we crafted the Tainted Effigy instead of wearing Soulfire, and that we switched our rings around from silver rings to gold rings to help cover our resistances. For the character sheet, you can see that we're almost capped on all resistances, just a little low on the physical and void. We have 32% armor, and we have about 1400 life. Our damages for void is sitting at almost 400%. We have that 300% critical strike multiplier, which is even higher since Rive has its own critical strike multiplier thanks to the idols. So you're actually at about 400 to 450% critical strike multiplier for Rive, which is absolutely huge, and why it's hitting so hard, especially once you start stacking up all of that physical damage. And then for how to play the build, I will put my first 3 skills on autocast, so we will have Smite on autocast, Anomaly on autocast, and the Devouring Orb. And you're going to see just how many orbs you start to get with this. And of course, to keep up with all that, you're going to be having to Rive quite often in order to keep up with that mana. And as you can see, we have got balls, balls, and balls just everywhere right now. And we throw in some Abyssal Echoes, and you can see how you're going to start getting just massive amounts of damage here. We're critting for 100 to 150,000 damage with Rive. And then on top of that, remember that these orbs right now are not doing the Abyssal Orb. They don't target the training dummy correctly, so you'll have a lot more ignite, so your single target damage will even be higher than this. And that's why in the gameplay you saw us just absolutely annihilating the bosses, because the single target damage is really good. Of course, the more mobs you have, the more ignite, the even more damage you're going to do. But with this build, you can just run it with the 3 first skills on autocast, and you're going to have great single target as well as group density damage. So let's go ahead and get into some more gameplay. And remember, stay safe, travelers.